I've been into electronics for longer than I've been into music, and I got into electronics through restoring old broadcast band AM radios and building my own simple Part 15 transmitters as a kid. So basically, I just restore like small, simple, like all American 5 tube radios or small transistor radios. They used to use transistors for really stupid purposes in old transistor style radios to get their transistor count up. So you'd see radios that would have like a rectifier that was created entirely with transistors, and they'd say like 12 transistor radio special American deluxe hot dog, whatever. All these radios were made in Hong Kong, but that's besides the point. I'm going off on a tangent like the first video. I enjoy going off on tangents. It's a lot of fun for me. Anyway, I'd make these transmitters from DIY builds or from a kit. You know, you can make a transmitter pretty simply. You can build one with just basically a crystal oscillator and a doorbell transformer, but I'd suggest that if you do this, you try to keep things Part 15 compliant, because with regards to this video, I'm not responsible if the FCC comes and like knocks down your door or something. I don't know how closely they monitor broadcast band AM, but building these transmitters was pretty cool, because the only AM stations that we ever had here were mariachi music and conservative talk shows. It was kind of nice to be able to transmit my own record collection or cassettes to the radios, and my friends and I, we'd kind of just take these little transistor radios and go around my house and like ride our bikes and stuff and listen to whatever from a cassette deck or from a record player. When I got a little older, I got into music, and I started having the idea of transmitting my recording over radios to try to capture the sound of the era. I like the idea of being able to sort of get that low-fidelity, fuzz-drenched tone that you can hear coming out of old cheap transistor and vacuum tube radios. I'm sure a million people have done this before. I even think that some of the musicians and projects that I posted on this channel, I believe like Taterbug, Lamborghini Crystal, that kind of stuff, well, James Ferraro, uses this technique, but I've never seen it documented, and I've never seen anybody talk about this on forums or whatever, so I wanted to share it. Here's a simple kit transmitter that I put together as a kid. This transmitter sucks. It's very noisy. It tends to distort anything that is ran into it. If I recall correctly, the initial design for it didn't even work. I had to modify it with some guidance from an older guy on a radio forum. I think the best possible examples of this thing in action have to be recordings on the Joe Diffie channel, which is kind of a channel, I'll link it in the description, that I have with some friends, where we just kind of basically post a lot of inside jokes and stuff. It's just dumb stuff, but I ran a lot of commercially available stuff through radios on that channel and recorded it just for the hell of it, just because it's fun. But another good example, and I'll put a clip in here, is a tape that I recorded last year, and I've used this technique on a ton of songs and a ton of recordings, but this tape that I made last year called Anonymous Locus and Robert Johnson Soul Food. And I used a Beat to Hell phone machine, the kit transmitter I showed earlier, and a cheap portable transistor radio to kind of record that album. And it's pretty much annihilated. It sounds like so noisy, barely audible. Sort of off topic, going off on another tangent, but I want to tell the story of the name for that tape just because I love it. I was driving with a friend one time, and we saw this car with a bumper sticker that said, "Drum machines have no soul," in all caps lock, and my friend sort of smirked at me, and I replied back with, "Well, Robert Johnson didn't have a soul either, and he was awesome." And we kept driving down the road a little ways, and we passed this soul food restaurant. He remarked, "I wonder how Robert Johnson's soul food tastes." And the rest is history. The anonymous locust part comes from a house I lived in for a while, where a ton of locusts got into my walls. And this was during the whole Nevada locust swarm thing. Happened a few years back. Anyway, here, I'll play an example, like I said I would, of audio ran through a radio via this transmitter. In terms of actually obtaining/building a Part 15 transmitter to use, I think there are cheap kits and units available on eBay, If you want a DIY one, you can go on the Antique Radio Forum and find schematics. I built a few tube transmitters via schematics on the Antique Radio Forum. If you have a lot of power transformers you've salvaged from stuff, they aren't bad at all. I was lucky enough to have them. If you don't have power transformers lying around, you'll probably have to buy or find one. Old tube equipment is a good source, especially old organs. Like the old Hammond-style organs that had vacuum tube amplifiers in them. They're a great source, but I'd never suggest cannibalizing something for parts because it destroys a piece of history. But, you know, sometimes you just have something that's so ratted out and destroyed that you're like, well, I'll just take the damn transformer from it. And I feel like that's a good attitude to have.